Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. Today, I'm here with Jennifer Ginty, and I am so impressed and excited to hear what she has to offer because it's something that I think people don't always talk about, but a lot of people are survivors of or have experienced. So Jennifer is a single mother and a survivor of childhood trauma, living with complex PTSD and major depressive disorder. Throughout her healing journey, Jennifer has learned many coping skills to help throughout the difficult symptoms of her mental health diagnosis. During a particularly hard period, Jennifer created My Moody Monster, which I'm excited to hear about, a pull-apart plush doll to help children to better cope with their own frustrations in a safe way. Families, therapists, and teachers have found Moody to help with communicating with children about their emotions and helping them understand that all feelings are valid. So welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on.
So why don't you tell us just a little about your background that you want to go on? You don't have to, go into detail, but what led you on this path and journey and why you're sharing with other people now?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I am a survivor of childhood abuse. I went through many years of my life with my abuser and then felt more trauma when I was in the court system while we were putting my abuser in prison. Throughout that time, I would tell myself, not yet, when I was talking about my healing journey, not yet, I'm in high school. Not yet, I'm in college. Not yet, I have a career. I'm married, I have children. And, it kept going with the not yet. And then in the end, one day my brain basically said to me, right now, it's now that you need to start this journey. You can't go forward unless you start healing. And so that took me down my healing journey that I'm on now. It's a constant, and it's also a roller coaster. So it has its ups and downs. And one day I was really frustrated with my symptoms in a therapeutic group. And I said to the group, I was like, I wish I had a monster that I could just rip apart, throw across the room, bang against the wall. And some of the people in the group were like, yeah, you should have that. So I went home, and I'm not a seamstress, I'm not a tailor in any way, but I made myself a Moody. And I decided after making them that is something that can really help with communication in families. I have my older son he had a lot of behavioral issues when he was younger, and he'd have big explosions and then shame spirals after.
Yeah.
And I would feel so badly for him that he felt this way, and it would always happen. And I wish that I had something like a Moody that he could take that frustration out on and not feel badly about it, that maybe he broke something of his brother's or he might have hit someone. So I thought that Moody would be a great way for children to show how much they need to let out those big feelings and allow parents to feel that they're in a safe environment doing that. And then afterwards, they can put Moody back together again and talk about what happened. What can we do next time to make it easier? What can we do to give you a coping skill that can help with that? So that's how Moody was born.
That is amazing, that story. And I wish that I would have had a Moody for my son, 15 years ago or 20 years ago, because I never even thought about that kids don't understand. And they, sometimes like my son, we called it heavy work, where he needed something where he could push and pull and do things because of his disabilities. And I wish that I would have had that because, then you talk about it and you're not hurting somebody in the process, you're taking it out on your Moody doll. So that's really cool. So kudos to you that you actually realized that you needed to get some help and that you needed to address this. I call it the iceberg, and because it's the book that I've written, and sometimes the iceberg just sits there in the water and you're in the ship and you don't realize until you hit the iceberg how bad you're sinking and how it affects your relationships and other things. Would you agree with that? Not agree with that?
I absolutely agree with it. And I also like the iceberg idea because people only see the tip of it,
Yes.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
And
there's so much more.
And let's go to, I'm sure your abuser, he acted probably very nice. I'm assuming it's a he, but your abuser acted very, very sweet to other people above the water. And what is your problem? Why do you have an issue with this person? They're so nice, right? But you go behind the doors of a house and they're a completely different person, which again is the iceberg. So I'm passionate about this topic because obviously I've written an entire book about it that's coming out. And it makes me sad that people go through so many things and not enough people are getting help. And so this is why I wanted to have you on, was to talk about how to heal and how you took that journey. So you were diagnosed with complex PTSD. What does that mean?
So a lot of people, they look at PTSD as, like it's a full blown, understanding. And in psychology, that kind of thing, in the diagnoses, there is only PTSD.
Right.
But complex PTSD is something that stems from when you're steeped in trauma. So that could be childhood trauma. It could be, homelessness. It can be, what is it? Husbands and wives having difficulties together. It can be emotional, not just physical. But it's complex PTSD is when you've been in it for a very long time, and it tends to change your brain.
Yeah.
It tends to change your body.
Yeah.
You are in a hyper focus. You're hypersensitive. And the way that I was told about the difference between PTSD and complex PTSD is a social worker gave me this great construct of it. PTSD, let's say you were in a really bad car crash and it was physically and emotionally horrible. When the next time you get into a car, you're feeling as though you're nervous, you're scared, you don't want to be in it. That kind of yeah, it's happened to me when I've been in a car accident. I don't want to get in behind the wheel. I'm afraid, that kind of thing. But ultimately, as you work through it, it gets easier.
Right.
And it becomes less of an issue over time. Complex PTSD is when you've been years, could be months, years in a traumatic episode experience. And that's what childhood abuse is a complex PTSD that gets carried through your life.
And then you're hypersensitive, hyper-focused, and you have triggers. So then you get into a relationship, and then typically maybe the type of relationship that you probably came from, not all the time, but a lot of people do. And then, so they're repeating the cycle because that's all they know. That's all they know how to deal with, And so it's horrible. It's horrible. And so many people need to know more about this. So you did get help. And one thing you used or found useful was it's called DBT therapy. So what is it and how do you use that in your daily life?
Sure. So DBT is dialectical behavioral therapy. And it was originally created by a woman named Marsha Linehan. She created it for people with PTSD and with borderline personality disorder. So people with those two diagnoses seem to have the same kind of symptoms. That they figured that out. So Marsha created this therapy, and it focuses on 4 different main tenets. So it focuses on mindfulness, and not in the way that a lot of people understand it as like mindfulness being like meditation or something like that. It's mindfulness of your emotions and your thoughts. There's also interpersonal communication, teaching you how to work with others, communicate with others in a way that helps both of you and you get what you want and need. And also being able to say no to people, which can be very hard for people who have trauma.
Yeah, it's very true.
There's scariness if I say,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
You're a pleaser.
Yeah,
like,
no,
if I say this or I do this, how are they going to react? So I need to, you're constantly, keep going.
Yeah, no. And then there's emotion regulation. So that kind of is like a more long-term, you get coping skills that you build up throughout time. And then there's also distress tolerance. So distress tolerance is when you need coping skills in the moment, when you're having a very distressing time to the point where other coping skills aren't going to work for you.
Wow.
So it's a great, there's a whole book that Marsha created that you can order on Amazon, and it has all the worksheets and it has all these great information. I used to do DBT therapy. I did years of it in a group. So you can also find DBT therapy in groups as well. And that's great because you also are able to work with that interpersonal communication, getting all of that out together and learning from each other. But I do have my favorites. I absolutely do have my favorite kind of coping skills. So one of them is checking the facts. So a lot of people, when we're taught that we shouldn't be showing our emotions, that they make people uncomfortable, that kind of thing, we squish them down. With checking the facts, this helps you to make sure that the feeling you're having, the emotion you're having, is the actual one you should be feeling. And I know that sounds a little weird.
No, it doesn't.
But
sense.
Yeah, so there's a lot of times people have a primary emotion and they can't show it or feel it, so they go to a secondary emotion. So checking the facts helps you to understand, I'm feeling this maybe secondary emotion, but I actually should be feeling this primary emotion, the one that actually fits the situation.
That's good.
So there are a lot of wonderful coping skills that DBT offers. And I have a YouTube channel and I put Moody Talks on, and every month I choose an emotion. And throughout the week, I talk about coping skills that you can use in those emotions. I love to share all of these coping skills with people.
Nice. So what do you do? Do you coach people, or how can they, besides your YouTube, can you help people with some of the issues that they're going through?
Well, I'm not a professional.
Right.
I'm just somebody, who's grown through it and is on my own healing journey. I'm always open to talk with people. I feel as though when I get my message out, it makes people feel like they're not alone, and I'm more than happy to talk with you. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm a therapist. But if there are things that you want to talk about that you feel came from what you've heard from me, I'm more than happy to talk with anyone. But I can be reached on my website and through all of their social medias, and it's all under My Moody Monster.
That's good. So how can you apply this to your children or the workplace? Because obviously PTSD, it affects every part of your life. So how do you work with your kids to deal with some of their emotions or things that they're going through? What are some of your 2 or 3 takeaways that you could teach other people to be able to apply to their children?
Sure. Number 1, put the oxygen mask on first. I highly believe that it's very important for us as parents to understand our own emotions and to learn our triggers and to know the coping skills that we need when we're triggered by our children. I think that helps with the communication between the two, and it helps for children to see that parents also need to take that time to deal with their big emotions and then come back and talk about it in a safe way. I think that's really the most important part of it, is that we understand ourselves as well as our little ones.
That's true.
And that's the way. I think it's the way that children will become more emotionally healthy adults if they can see they can even mimic in their smaller year, their earlier years, but I think it's important.
It's interesting because I have 6 kids of my own, right? So I love my kids, and they range from 24 to, well, she just turned 9, right? And I will take like the 8 and under, even the infants, before I want to take the adult on, because they can choose their own, they can tell you no, right? They can say whatever they want. And as a teenager, they're tired, they're trying to figure stuff out. And so I have one particular, he's a senior. And so it's like trying to get him to school on time is just a miracle if we can do that, right? And so sometimes I find myself getting a little upset, and he likes to lock the door. So, knocking on the door a little more forcefully than normal. And so it's interesting because the last couple of days I'm like, okay, this is not working. We're more than halfway through the school year. We got a few more months to go. How can I change the narrative to try a different option? And, it's the same thing with you. It's, okay, how can I help you today? What do you need? Are you prepared so that you can just walk out the door? And so it's so many coping skills we as parents don't know, because we're not given this instruction manual, and every single kid is different. And so I love that you talk about putting the oxygen mask on first, because I realize I'm frustrated because I can't get him to do what I want him to do. Well, but maybe I need to ask him what he needs and how he's doing, right? So I love that. I appreciate that. That's good. Anything else?
And yeah, your healing journey started as soon as you possibly can. Like I said, I used to say not yet, and then my brain told me now.
Right.
If I started earlier and worked through it, I think that I probably would have had an easier time at parenting. And because I didn't have a model for parenting. So I was kind of jumping in, not knowing. And if I was on my healing journey the way that, I should have been, I mean, I went to therapy, I would do, I do the things, but I don't think my heart was in it.
Right.
So starting that healing journey as soon as possible is the best way for you to live your best life and your children's best lives. And remember, healing is never linear.
Right.
It's always going to be a roller coaster. And that could be for months, that could be for years, that could be forever, but it's okay. Give yourself grace, because it's important.
And to remember that it wasn't your fault. There's nothing that you did that, they chose to do those things. It was not your fault. And I think a lot of times, well, if I would have just, if I might have just, if I wouldn't have, or if I could have said, it's not your fault, because everyone has choices, and they chose bad choices,
Right.
So a question I like to ask my guests is, you're sitting on a park bench and you're there with your 18-year-old self. What advice would you give that person?
Go with the flow. Don't try to force your life. Don't try to force it into a square if it's a circle. And don't forget that you are human. You're not perfect.
Right.
You can make mistakes, and you can learn from them and thrive.
I like that, because we are not perfect. That's why we're on this planet, so that we can learn. And I like that, and going with the flow, I want to clarify that, because I have some people that I know where going through with the flow just means they wake up every morning and let their parents take care of them, and they're 50 plus years old. And so they still live at home with their parents and stuff. So when you say go with the flow, what do you mean by that?
Go with the flow of the life that's around you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that there are many times that I tried to push myself in directions that weren't necessary, when I could have just followed the path that my life was going in, to and continue to learn and grow in that sense, instead of forcing things. Going with the flow.
A purposeful direction where
Exactly.
you want to go this way, but God or whatever higher being you have really wants you to go this way. And so he keeps trying to bring you back over here, but you're still trying to go here. So go with the flow like that. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's the best. Yeah. That's the best way of saying it.
All right. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they find you?
They can find me on my website, mymoodymonster.com, all one word. I'm on all the socials. And you can find me the same. It's My Moody Monster, all one word. And, I'd love to talk. And I always put it out there. If you have any questions or comments about the things that I talk about in, my Moody Talks, that kind of thing, I'm always happy to talk.
That's fantastic. And what attribute to changing something negative into a positive and helping so many people? It's an amazing, kids love dolls, and specifically girls especially, but boys do too. And to be able to have something where it's theirs, they can emotionally get connected to it, and they can express their emotions so that they don't have to do it on somebody else, and then they can talk about it after. That's good for you. It's an amazing thing that you've done. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So learning to focus on your emotions and acknowledge them, deal with them, and make sure that you can talk about them. And that is everything that we can take away from it. And that trauma can be turned into something positive if we let it, and not become a victim. So thank you so much to my guest, Jennifer Ginty, and have another Unbreakable Mompreneur Day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.